Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I'm joined by my dear friend Kevin Gamble. He and I are going to discuss a topic, but here at the top of the show, as has been the traditional way, I'm going to ask Kevin if he has any questions about recent content on the channel or anything that he'd like to discuss before we dive in. So take it away, Kevin.
Oh, good to see you, Tris. Good to be here again. And I did want to make a reference back to some recent content on the channel that I think is a great example of what this channel is all about, that distinguishes it from a lot of the other content out there, was your video on how to record bass guitar. And I'm very much used to seeing those kind of videos immediately dive into equipment, plugins, signal chain, what type of cable you should be using, all these other kinds of things. And, basically an infomercial right from the start. You can't do it unless you're using this exact, killer app or whatever. But their video took an entirely different angle, and it took an angle that is much more about sort of teaching the viewer how to fish. It wasn't about your equipment. It was about here's how to effectively use a bass guitar as a player of a bass guitar to get a clean, consistent, usable recording. It doesn't matter what bass you're using. It doesn't matter what your signal chain is. If you're not managing these basics of how to correctly manage the strings on a bass guitar as you're playing it, you're going to have to, make up for it later in the process, and it's going to be a lot more work and a lot less satisfying result. And so I really like the angle you took on that, and I think it's worth people checking out, because I think whether you play bass or record bass or not, I think the angle of approach on this really sets aside a lot of questions about, am I missing something that I need to have, and putting the focus back on what am I doing as a player, and how does that cumulatively impact the process that I'm working on? Am I making life harder for myself, or am I mastering a skill that's going to make me better at this process? So anyway, I know we'll put the link to that video down below, and I encourage folks to check it out. But do you have any other thoughts about your approach to recording the bass? Any, certain, way you go about finding the notes or playing them that has been very effective in your case?
Well, over the years, what I've discovered is that, open strings, as nice as they sound sometimes, sometimes you can't avoid doing an open E. It depends on, or a D if you're, down tuning. If you just got to get to the register or the note, sometimes you have to use an open string. But once you get past the E string, I try to find areas where I can be fretting. I try to find areas of the fingerboard that are very consistent. I like to play in what's sometimes termed as no man's land. Third fret down to the 12th fret, that territory right there, I find I can get myself into a nice tight position. I can grab anything that I need to from that area. I can still do effective slide downs, and I can do slide ups and catch them clean. And you're absolutely right. As far as, you do need a certain level of gear. I discussed that in the video where it's like, your bass needs to, have good tuning machine heads. It needs to stay in tune. The strings need to be properly stretched, and it has to be intonated. If you have those things without, abhorrent noise too, you don't want to have fret buzz everywhere and stuff like that. So if the bass is mechanically sound, it really is just about all those muting techniques. And I didn't even go into excruciating detail on how to do all of that. And perhaps someday you should do a video just on a master class of muting bass, because those overtones and open strings and the clickety clacks and things like that, no matter how good your take is, or no matter how many plugins you have or noise suppression software, there are bits and pieces of plugins that can try to get rid of noise from your bass tracks. But if you have it in your hands and it's good up front, it just, like you said, it's so much work to try to fix a bad bass track, and it will kill your track. I mean, if the bass is noisy, or if the bass has things that jump out at you while you're listening, be it something out of tune or a mechanical noise, it just is a take killer, and it's a track killer. Nobody wants to hear that unless it's a character piece. If you're slapping, or if you're doing, if it's meant to be that, you're doing a metal track or something, that could be different. But if you're just trying to lay down a clean bass line, I thought it was a good video on just how to try to keep it quiet. So
yeah, plugins can kind of distract us from the reality, but with I think even more so than with guitar, it's basses, and like you mentioned, the video, it's not something that people necessarily talk about a lot, but a clean bass guitar tone can just be full of issues. It doesn't seem like it when it's easy to make notes. It's easy to get a straightforward in the room sound on a bass guitar, but recording will pick up every little ringing open string that clashes with the note you're playing, and little miniature resonances as you're moving between notes and things like that. And so it to really zero in on that can be really eye-opening. And the technique, you mentioned like a master class on that, the technique really depends on what sound you're trying to get, the kind of, way you're playing it and things like that. But everybody can take a look at what the results are they're getting, and then apply the concepts that you illustrated in the video to clean that up. And there'll be better bass players and better guitar players instantly just from doing that.
Absolutely. And you also have to remember, and this will be, I want to wrap this up so we can hop into the topic, but don't forget that like Jamerson and Carol Kay and all of the classic, like studio players, even to this day, there's a continuum throughout the studio bass playing community. These people have sponges and foam and all sorts of things in their cases to place either at the headstock or right next to the bridge. Muting is huge. I mean, to get a clean take, and the pros do it all the time, and they know that they're putting every pound of flesh they can find onto the strings to keep them quiet.
Yep.
So,
yep, you got it.
All right. Well, anyway, let's hop into our topic. This is something I kind of want to dovetail a little bit into my personal world for just a moment to introduce it. The topic today is trying not to be too obsessed with gear, even though we all love gear and we all use gear to be creatives. I think that there's a danger in, getting too, fixated on, either the quality or the type or a specific thing that you have to have in order to do what you want to do. I think that it can get a little bit nutty. It can get a little bit expensive. And recently, I've kind of taken up, my wife makes fun of me for saying this, but a late in life new activity that I'm really enjoying. I've been playing a lot of disc golf. She says I'm not late in life. For me, it feels like I am. But anyway, I've been playing a lot of disc golf, and that's kind of taken my focus a little bit away from like, oh, I need to mod this guitar, I need to sell this guitar to buy another guitar, or I need to upgrade this, X, Y, or Z. And instead, I've been enjoying being outside on the course and buying discs instead of music gear recently. And what it kind of did, along with being in the studio tracking for my upcoming album, I've been noticing that I have a few tools that I really go to and that I have totally dialed. There's a lot of things that I've bought over the past 5 years that I am not using at all, that I thought were going to be vital pieces of gear. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit, or encourage people to not get too fixated, because when you actually are just doing creative stuff, you may be shocked by what you end up. You may go back to your beginner guitar. I know that sometimes you track with your original Yamaha BB300. That's almost 40 years old now. And what I'm finding is that I'm kind of using, things that I've always had around, that I'm really used to, that are very comfortable and worn in. And the newer stuff that I'm using is not the boutique-y stuff or the higher end stuff. I'm using the more meat and potatoes basic things, because I'm finding that those sound better when I'm recording than the things that are supposed to be so much better. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to open up the conversation on this, that practical application and having other interests can really like kind of free up your creative space rather than being fixated on, oh, I just can't do that until I get this, and kind of kicking the can down the road, or, being like, oh, I'm limited because I don't have this specific thing. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Kevin.
Well, that's a great story, Tris, and I think it brings up a really great example of how important it is to have something that interrupts that process, because otherwise the rabbit hole can kind of take over, and you can just get lost in this idea of it's possible. I think we've all been there, spending hours, days, weeks, months, thinking that this something else is what is needed for this moment. But there's nothing like outside distractions or deadlines or other things to kind of snap you out of it and really just simplify things. You've talked about the process of recording the album you're working on. The stuff I've been recording lately is kind of similar, where it really simplifies everything. And it's like, oh, this is all I'm using. This is what works for this. I don't need all these other things. I don't need to be looking at that guitar on reverb and thinking if I had that, then I could do this. It's like, no, I've got it. And this is all a distraction from my art. And so I think, in the age that we grew up in of guitar magazines, and now with YouTube and social media, there's so much emphasis on selling and trying to upsell everybody. And one more guitar, one more pedal, one more plug-in, and you'll have it. You'll have exactly what you need, but it's always plus one. It's never what you've got already, or even less than what you've got already. And there's nothing like actually just getting down to business and applying it. First off, to creating the art, which is supposedly what all this is about at the end of the day, and then just getting shaken out of that pattern to if you take the opportunity to just step back and reflect on it and say, what do I really need here, and what is really giving me what I need, do I even need to be devoting the mental space and the time drain to all these other things? So it's a big thing. There are huge marketing machines that are designed to pull us out of any sense of satisfaction or comfort or gratitude for anything we have. And that's not just music, that's everything in life. And it takes a lot to fight against it.
Just really quick, and I know that you want to hit some more key points, but I just wanted to interrupt and just bring up kind of an elephant in the room when it comes to marketing and the gear world right now. It is a soft market right now for the manufacturers, the retailers, and the online stores. Sales have, gone way down this year. That's not a secret. Everybody knows it. And there's also the fact that the product design it keeps coming, and we talked about this a little bit while ago with the boutique amps and things like that. And it just seems to keep coming and coming. And I think that a lot of the hard marketing that we're feeling right now and can give you that feeling of like, oh, I don't have that, and they're really effective at making you feel like but I have to have that, is because the marketplace is just really soft. And they're desperate to sell. And once a product design, once that R&D goes in, they got to take it. They got to make it, and they got to sell it because they spent the money. So we have to. Right now is just one of those kind of beware. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of things too that are just doppelganger products that are like just one on top of the other, like True Spring reverb pedals. Do we need the Jack White version of that? I don't think so. So anyway, I'll let you get back to it.
No, that's really important. That's what we're up against. I don't think that it's easy to lose track of how much a time drain and a mental space drain it can be, always looking for the next thing. It can really just take over. And I think you made a good point when we were chatting recently about what is important in a piece of music gear, what is important in a guitar. I mean, obviously, as we just mentioned, your instrument has to stay in tune. It has to be able to be put in tune and so forth. But you talked about how, there are things that personally have to matter to you about an instrument in order for that to be the right thing for you. And I think that's a little undervalued too, as we look more at status and the idea of an objective threshold of this guitar is objectively better, and you have to have it in order to be objectively better. But what are some of your thoughts on what is important in a piece of music gear that we should be focusing on, as opposed to the other things we talked about that aren't as important?
Well, something interesting. We'll talk about marketing. I'll do a little marketing bit, and then I'll go into that. I did a video a while back, that was about, should I put a decal on my parts caster? Should I put a Fender decal on there? Is that okay, as long as I don't try to pass it off as a Fender and rip somebody off down the road if I sell it? And I think that wrestling with that is kind of comes right to what you're saying and what I want to address. What do you need out of an instrument? Am I okay with it not having a Fender on the headstock? Am I okay with having a parts caster as my primary guitar? Do I care that what is the what am I trying to say? The importance of having a name brand and having, something that is a status symbol, is that important to me? And more over the years, I used to be like, oh, I'd really like to get that particular vintage thing that has that on the headstock and was made in that factory on that day and has the right pickup in it. And what I found is that I've kind of been landing more and more towards just extreme customization of whatever I have to make it feel good, look good to me, and entice me to play it, and perfect mechanical platform. If your instrument is a perfect mechanical platform and the neck feels right and the body feels right, you're there. Then from there, you're just refining things. Maybe I will try some different capacitors and potentiometers, different pickup sets, maybe a different bridge on it. You start messing with those components. I say that one of the best ways to go about getting to the instrument that you truly feel comfortable with and are willing to sit with for the rest of your life and play doesn't necessarily involve purchasing a completed instrument. Because more than likely, if you really get in deep, unless it's like, a neck through body, but even then you can shave things down. There are things you can do to customize anything. And I strongly urge people just to find something that feels good or components that feel good, and then get it into a perfect playing platform first, and then worry about how you want it to look. And those, like, even if it's just, sometimes it's as simple as changing plastics. Like, I hated that 40th anniversary Jazzmaster until I put black knobs, black, vibrato tip, and black pickup covers on it, and then the switch, then the toggle switch, plastic. And I was like, now I want to pick it up, And sometimes it's as simple as doing that. But I'm all about, I think, first and foremost, neck profile and mechanical. If it can have low action, is perfectly tunable, perfectly intonatable, then you're there. And from there, it's just you make it, or you buy something that fulfills all of your other wishes, and you shouldn't be concerned. I mean, obviously, you don't want to put all of your eggs into a budget basket that doesn't work. You don't want to do that. But I also don't think that there really hasn't been much innovation in guitar technology, unless you're a Strandberg person, and I'm not speaking to that audience or whatever. But really, ultimately, all this tech is like pre-1970, and so it's just about dialing in old stuff anyway. So there, why would I want to pay $100 for a stop tailpiece that's made out of the right metal, So anyway. That was a very rambling response.
I think but that really gets down to what I think the fork in the road is here. You can keep buying more and more things to paste on top of something, but if you haven't taken the time to really form a relationship with your tools and really understand what you need and what you like and don't like and what makes you happy, whether it's the shape of the neck, the look of the instrument, or things like that, then it's going to take a lot of extra time and money to paper over that. And you referred back to my original bass guitar. The Yamaha BB300 was the first instrument I ever got, and I still have it and love it. But even though I bought many other guitars and sold many other guitars since then, if that was all I had, I would be fine. I would be okay. It would not prevent me from doing anything I need to do. And in fact, when that was all I had, I spent a lot more time in the nuances of how it played, how it sounded, what I could pull out of this particular instrument. And you lose some of that when you've got a bunch of different things to choose from and you're always switching between them and staying more on the surface. So it really is taking it's kind of turning the process on its head, where you don't start at the end with a high-end piece of gear. You start where you are and focus on what you're trying to do with it and figure out really what you want at the end of the day. And it doesn't have to be a complete packaged unit to get you there. You can tweak and nudge and shape it and piece together things as you want. But at the end of the day, that's a much more meaningful journey than just continuing partial satisfaction with the thing that you've been told needs to be the thing you have. And just to add one more quick anecdote onto that, as far as appreciating what you've got, I had an interesting moment a few years back where I bought a Rode condenser mic similar to the one you have, a slightly different model, and great mics, great company, and I used it for a while. It was the best microphone I could afford at the time, but you're inundated when you research about, the next level mics, the Neumanns and things like that. Not even the highest end ones, but some of the mid-range ones and you think that, well, surely if I could just, move up, a little further, I could really get the result I'm looking for. And just spent a lot of time in that rabbit hole of, gosh, how much can I afford to move up, or what's the best step, what's the best way to get into an area that will feel legitimate to me. And there's this website called Audio Test Kitchen that allows you to do blind tests of microphones, comparing them, recording all kinds of different sound sources and full mixes of things recorded with them. And so I thought, I'm going to prove to myself how far off the mark I am with this mic and how much better it would be if I used another microphone. So I put in my Rode mic, and I put in all those nice, microphones going up into a few $1,000s that I thought would show me, just how crummy my mic is and how much I needed to upgrade. I was fully biased against the microphone I was using at that point. Plugged everything in, did the blind tests, took notes on every result that I liked best. And it ended up being my microphone that I chose in every test. And it wasn't just because it's what I was used to, because I was convinced that I had something that was too limited. But those tests showed me that I had what was suited for my purposes and what I wanted to hear and how I wanted things to sound. There are resources out there to try that, but even just skipping that step and saying, I've got this tool, it's really capable of doing what I need to do. What am I doing this for at the end of the day? What is the purpose of having this? Let's shift the focus to that and what makes sense to me, and put the value on making that use of your time instead of the rabbit holes from marketing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that all of that is completely the point of what we're trying to say in this video. It's basically obsessing over, especially things that are relatively expensive or unobtainium. And it's just ultimately, I think, a waste of people's time. There are obviously things that you want to have or need to have to a certain extent. Obviously fulfill those needs, but I've just found that it's been quite liberating to kind of get off the train for a while and not be geeking out constantly about product, and just kind of like going, wow, I have a lot of good things right here underneath my hands, and really appreciating them. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it to this point in the video, we would appreciate a like and a subscribe. Subscriptions are heading in the right direction, which is always wonderful. Please leave a comment. that? Have you been obsessed with something, gotten it and been disappointed, or just obsessed with something to the point of coming to, a bit of paralysis, waiting for that thing to happen before you do the next thing? And let us know. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.